Today we're going to do a forklift pre-trip on a Class 4 style forklift. So we normally call it a forklift, but you may also hear of it referred to as a lift truck. With the pre-trip, you're supposed to be doing this every morning or before every shift, before work commences. So let's start with checking out the engine compartment. And we're going to have a general look in here for any signs of excessive oil leakage, wiring that is frayed. We will check our belt tension. Seems to be good. Alternator secure. I'll also want to check the engine oil. So you'll have to find the dipstick and a rag. And make sure it's between the two marks to show you have enough engine oil. And we want to check our coolant level. So this is the overflow tank, which will show our coolant level minimum and maximum. Pretty tough to see the level here because the battery's hiding it. But this one has an extra feature where we can move the battery out of the way. It's a little lever here, and the whole battery pivots out of the way. And then we can look in here and we can see we're just above the minimum mark. While we're here, we're also going to check the battery connections to make sure they're secure and the battery's held down tight. And right here on this particular model, we have our hydraulic fluid level. So we can pull it out and see that we have enough fluid that we can continue with the day's work. Good. Now everything in the engine compartment appears to be in good shape. So we'll continue with the rest of the forklift inspection. So in the back here, the counterweight looks to be secure. I'd be looking for any signs that it has been moving. I'm going to check out the tires. So these are non-pneumatic solid rubber tires. So I'm just looking more at the tread, which there's not much tread on here. And then I'm looking at the wheel nuts to make sure none of the wheel nuts are loose. Okay. And as with any pre-trip, you just work your way around the vehicle and check everything that you see, give it a shake, and proceed to the next spot. So this is called the FOPS, and that is to protect the operator, and it's not allowed to have any modifications done to it. It's an engineered structure, so it must be in original shape, and no cracks or even rust spots on it will degrade its ability. So it is secure, and I can see that there has been no modifications done to it. Okay, and I can check it on each corner. The controls we'll go through later. I'm going to move to the front wheel now, and these again are, the tires are pneumatic this time, so they do have air pressure in them. And again, I'm checking for tread and any cuts in the tire that might make it fail. Checking the wheel nuts again to make sure that they're all secure and in place. And my tilt cylinders are here. So I'm going to look in there and see if I can see any signs of damage or hydraulic oil leak. Everything looks good. I have the lift cylinder hoses are here. So just visually checking them quickly to make sure that they're in good shape and no oil leaks. Moving to the front of the machine, I'm going to check the backrest to make sure it's secure. It's held on by 4 bolts on the corners, and it is not loose. I'm going to check the forks to see their condition, that they haven't been modified or somebody's cut a hole in them. And especially in here is where they're prone to crack. I will have a check on both forks to make sure they're not cracked. Again, while I'm down here, there's a couple side shift cylinder hoses here that I'll be checking to make sure that they're not damaged and they're not leaking. Your lift cylinder is right here. And again, doing a visual check that the cylinder itself is not leaking and that its hoses that are supplying it are in good shape. The lift chain, again, looks to be good. A little bit dry, it could probably use a little extra lubrication. And then the mast, just to make sure that there's no obvious damage to the mast. And there's a couple rollers up here that I'm just going to make sure are spinning and not in rough shape. I'm going to check this tilt cylinder as we did the one on the other side. And I'm going to check the tires again. The way I can check a pneumatic tire as an operator is with a hammer. So striking the tire with a hammer, I can feel it bounce. And that means that there's air pressure inside of there. I don't know how much air pressure, but it's a good indication that there's air in this tire. The inside one actually is a thud. There's very little bounce to it, so there's very little air in it. I've got a flat tire on the inside. I'll have to talk to a mechanic to get that tire checked out before I start my work. Again, checking the wheel nuts to make sure everything's secure, no signs of an oil leak around here, and no damage to the sidewall of the tires. I shake for the ROPS again, make sure this corner is secure. And moving back to the back corner now, counterweight looks like it hasn't been shifting around on this side. And again, my non-pneumatic tire, very little tread, but the wheel nuts look to be tight and no signs of wheel bearing oil showing up here. And now we want to check our steer cylinders. So we'll look here to see that everything looks to be in good shape and no excessive hydraulic leaks. While I'm back here, I can check my fuel supply. So if you notice on the gauge, it has 2 positions. One says vertical and the other is horizontal. The position, that's referring to the position that the tank is sitting when you're checking it. So this is in the horizontal position, and you can see we're right on empty. So it has just about run out of fuel. Normally, I'll let them run out of fuel and just change it when it does, but if I've got a heavy lift to do, then I don't want a chance of it running out of fuel in the middle of a heavy lift, so I would change this thing early. I'll also want to make sure that the tank is secure. So just give it a shake and make sure that it's locked down and not going to fall off. That's the external checks on the forklift. Now we're going to jump into the operator's seat and check out the cab area. And I'll check out the seat belt, that it retracts easily and freely. I can also check my steering play without it running by wiggling it back and forth to see if there's excessive amounts of play. I'm going to turn it on to check out my lights. And the one that has to work, is the most important, is the strobe light. That is for safety. And then the rear floodlights. And then I'm going to check the front lights. to make sure both of those are working. Also, a very important safety device on the forklift is your horn. Now that we've checked all that without the engine running, we're going to start the engine up. Of course, I've got to remember to turn my fuel on. I'm going to operate it now, so I'll require to have a seat belt on. And then I'm going to check out the controls. So the one closest to you will be your fork lift. Pull back to lift the forks up. Push ahead to bring the forks down. Back is up like you're doing the physical work yourself. The middle lever is for tilt. And again, it's done logically, so you pull back, it's going to tilt towards you. Push ahead, and it'll tilt away from you. The outside lever, if you have one, is for side shift. And it is random to which way it goes, just something you'll have to get used to. So back, it'll side shift one way, and forward, it will side shift the other way. One of the other things that we can check is our amount of free lift. So that is the amount that you can lift the forks off the ground before your overall height of your machine increases. If we're watching, the mast hasn't started to raise yet. To that height there, I've lifted the forks off the ground and my overall machine height hasn't moved yet. And that will allow me to lift quite high inside a container. Whenever you're parking the forklift, you always make sure that your forks are on the ground to prevent a tripping hazard. We're now going to check out our brake system. So stepping on the brakes to see that the pedal is firm. Okay. And we can check our throttle response to see that it revs up and then comes back to idle when we release it. So we're now going to check out our travel. So we're going to step on our service brake and we're going to release the park brake. We're going to move our shift lever ahead for forward travel and slowly release the brake. And then apply the brake to test the response. And backup alarm is working. I can also and brakes are working in reverse. You may be wondering how much this forklift can lift safely. So that's where every forklift has a capacity plate somewhere on the dash. This forklift is able to lift 8,000 pounds at a 24-inch center from the back of the forks. Now that our pre-trip inspection is finished, everything looks pretty good, but we still have that flat tire issue to deal with. So once the mechanic gets that fixed up, you're ready to go to work.